Hello everyone, it is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black the one and only, here with another exciting live stream. In this video, I'm going to be talking about today, July 29th, 2019. Today I finally figured out how to use components in Vue.js, which is a JavaScript front-end framework. So I'm very excited to say that I now have not only learned how to use components, but how to implement them into my Vue.js project. So yeah! Now, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm currently learning more about V4, which is Vue.js's version of for loops. It shouldn't be too difficult at all. I just happened to incorrectly set up a list that I need. So that set me back a little bit. I could have already implemented the V4 loop that I've wanted because I think the loop itself is written correctly. It's just the list that I made. Um, I tried to make it more complicated than it needed to be. So I'm like dialing it back so that I just get the functionality that I need. But yeah, all in all, I've had a really solid and productive day at work. When it comes to messaging, I've been messaging with Beth. After work, I messaged a lot with Beth. I messaged Anthony a little bit, messaged Aiden a little bit, Dozer a little bit. My grandma came by. She brought some red velvet cake. I'm gonna have some of that tomorrow. That's gonna be awesome. Yo, Ryan, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you. Don't forget to smash that like button. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy? And do you have any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? Right now, I'm working on a lore book. Essentially, I'm taking a superhero universe that I created when I was like a little kid, and I'm developing upon it and making a book that collects a whole bunch of fun facts about it. So it's going to talk about different powers, different species, introduce different characters who are superheroes and supervillains, different settings, and then I'm planning on using those in future superpower battle stories. So I'm hyped. Let's see. Let me get the actual live chat up on my computer. That way I can see what you guys are saying. I saw Nerd Tinker pop in. I didn't see what he said. But yo, Nerd Tinker, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you. Don't forget to smash that like button. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy? And do you have any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? Um, I actually just created a brand new character for the lore book that I'm working on. Um, so far in the lore book, I've written out a lot of powers, but I haven't written out a lot of the characters. I've written out the main villain, and then I wrote down the benefactor for the superheroes, but not necessarily. He himself isn't normally someone who fights, but I'm thinking about if he were to fight, who would he fight? And then I actually created a villain specifically to face off against the benefactor, which I think is cool. Um, the more that I call him the benefactor, the more I'm like, yo, that could be a cool name for him. Because a lot of these characters that I'm talking about are characters that I came up with when I was a little kid. They don't have cool names. Like the villain, his name is Rex, and he's like a half human, half T Rex kind of character. But he also is a magic based character. I can actually tell you guys about Rex because I just realized my description probably sounds really crazy. But let me go in and like actually tell you guys a little bit more about Rex and what he can do. I just need to scroll to the character section. Here we go. So Rex is a member of the Dino Man species, which is a subspecies of the animal men. Essentially, the animal men are just anthropomorphic animals, so they're like human animal hybrid creatures. So he's the last remaining member of the Dino Man species. He's a supervillain, and his motivations are tied to his history fighting in this great war between the Dino Men and the mythical shadows. So, in my story, the way that the Dino Men go extinct is that there's this massive war between them and these beings called the mythical shadows, who are essentially these beings who are made out of a pitch black energy, and they have the ability to take the form of mythical creatures. So they can transform into things like vampires, werewolves, dragons. They can become like a phoenix, things of that nature. But they all are made out of the same pitch black dark energy, which makes it where during the night or when they're in shadows, you simply like can't see them. They become essentially invisible, but only in the dark. Um, and the Dino Men and the Mythical Shadows had a huge war that ended up with all of the Dino Men being wiped out except for Rex. And the reason why Rex is not wiped out by the Mythical Shadows is because he somehow adapts to their magic, and through his body adapting to their magic, he gains two key abilities. He gains the ability to seal mythical shadows into other beings, and technically he could also do it into himself, but that could be dangerous. And he gained immortality. So Rex now can't die, and he can seal mythical shadows into other people. So after he essentially wins the war, because all the mythical shadows that come to get him, he can just put them in someone, and if they're weak, then well, if the mythical shadow itself is weak, then that person becomes his slave. That's a part of how the power works. But if they're strong, they just kind of end up possessing that person. But if you can kill the person, you can kill the beast, kind of thing. So it makes it a little bit easier to take them down, because they're no longer like these weird energy beings once they're like tied directly to a body. So he more or less bonds all these different mythical shadows to different creatures, turning them into his slaves. And then he sets himself up in a city, which he makes like the capital of his empire. And he's like, now that I'm the last of my kind, and I've won what seemingly was going to be like an impossible world, not an impossible world, an impossible war, and he can't die. He's like, well, now I should just kind of rule the planet. He's like, I feel like I deserve it. I fought through all this hardship. I was able to overcome an impossible challenge, and from that, I've essentially become a god. He's like, I might as well use that status to rule over the world. So he kind of chills in his empire, and he sets his borders for his city, and anyone who enters his city, he uses his power on to bond a mythical shadow to, so that he can then take control of them. So that's his thing for a while, until he starts to see the world around him continue to grow. So it seems like from the way that it's set up that Rex doesn't know that there's so much more world out there beyond the world of himself and his dino men, and like the few creatures that happen to wander into his city. So after many years pass and he suddenly realizes that there are like these other cities that have been continuing to grow and develop, he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have just stayed in one place for so long. I need to like truly claim the world and travel and see what I haven't seen and take everything over." Yo, Matt, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy? Do you have any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? Matt said, shadows, now we're talking. And then he said, no, no, and no. So, Matt, I'm actually talking about Rex. He's a character that I'm creating as a part of a lore book that I'm developing. So, when I was a kid, I had a superhero universe that I used to imagine whenever I played with toys. And I didn't write down a lot of the stories. They were stories that I made through just creative play, like playing with action figures and stuff like that. But now I'm actually collecting elements of those stories, like the settings and the characters and the powers, into a big book that goes over the characters' motivations and abilities and things of that nature. And then Matt said, so in other words, fake shadows that are bad. Got it. Well, Matt, I feel like you missed a good bit of my explanation about the shadows and everything like that. Um, but long story short, there are these creatures inside of the lore that are called mythical shadows, who are essentially these beings made of a pitch black energy who can take the form of different mythical creatures. And they were in a war with this half human, half dinosaur race called the Dino Men. But then the last surviving Dino Man, the last surviving Dino Man, Rex, is able to harness shadow magic, and he uses that to not only become immortal, but to seal these mythical shadows into other beings, turning them into his slaves while also granting them the powers of the mythical shadows. Dad gave a weird face. Good to see you, Dad. Let's see. So then Matt said, you aren't ancient African tales that are passed down by storytellers. Stop it. That's a very specific thing. Is it because of the mythical shadows thing? Mm. Also, Matt, what do you think? Um, well, I haven't really told you much actually, but from the little I have told you, what do you think? So Rex, now that he's a part of the greater world and he's had his own city that he's conquered for years, but he learns that there's more out there. He continues to explore and he tries to essentially bond mythical shadows to everyone in the world so that he can take over the planet. Because he feels that after winning the war, overcoming incredible odds, and essentially becoming an immortal, that ruling over the planet is kind of his birthright. Let's see, Dad said it's the I'm just going to write these tales that I never actually wrote down bit. Oh, that reminds you of like the ancient African tales thing? Well, I mean, it's true though, because as a kid, I did love to write when I was younger, but a lot of times when I was like a really really little kid, um, I didn't really write as much as I just did like imaginative play. I do know that I wrote a few comics when I was younger about this particular universe, but I don't think I have those anymore. I didn't write them in journals. I wrote them on individual pieces of paper that I like stapled together, and that's bound to just get lost somewhere. So now I'm finally taking that universe and I'm recording everything and getting it down. Let's see. So where are we at? Matt said, "Has an OC to surpass Metal Gear arisen yet?" An OC to surpass Metal Gear? Who's Metal Gear? Uh, Cause you introduced Shadow Darkgale, right, Matt, as like your OC. Oh, and yes, there have been more OCs introduced. So Kel's introduced an OC who I would love to talk about, and Beth mentioned her OC, Hypno Kitty. Then Matt said, "I am Metal Gear." Beth said, hashtag dad reveal. Yo, Beth, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you. Don't forget to smash that like button. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy? Do you have any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? Now, Matt, hit me up with that two sentences for your guy. Because I think we can actually have a really solid who would win OC battle discussion today. Because everybody has a character. Like, everybody has someone that they can discuss. I could use Rex, the guy that I like was just talking about. You could use your Shadow Dark Gale guy that you're gonna call Metal Gear. Beth could use Hypno Kitty, and then Kels could use I think his name is Vibiro. But we could then have an OC battle. I guess it would be like a three-way battle royale that we could discuss, and I think that'd be pretty cool. Let's see. Matt said this will be a different two sentences since no one actually wrote it down. Also, Matt, you could always just record that on the amino. That way it could be written down, and we would just have it. That'd be pretty solid. Let's see. And then Matt said, but as close to what I remember it being with slight modifications. Okay, and then Matt said, I will never use amino. Well, you're gonna have to trust me to record your two sentences then. Excuse me. Because I'm about to try and make a post to hold the two sentences that you write. Do 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 da 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 ba dow ba now ba now wow ba now ba now. Also, you're gonna call your guy Metal Gear? That's totally fine, but I'm just trying to clarify. Do 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 ba na 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 wow. Let's see. So right now I'm gonna do my two sentences for Rex, and then you can write your two sentences for Metal Gear, and then we'll talk about it. So Kevin said, "Hello, chat." He said, "Ryan should buy Jet for Christmas a T-shirt that says I got a bottle for Christmas, or make it himself for the memes." Lol, JK. I think that would be interesting. Uh, Yo, Kevin, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you. Don't forget to smash that like button. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy? Do you have any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? Right now, we're talking about who would win OC battle, where you guys make up your own original characters and we discuss who would win in a fight. You can limit your thing to 2 sentences. That way it's easier for everyone to discuss. But those are mainly the only rules. And when I mean limit your things to 2 sentences, I mean just the powers can be limited to 2 sentences. Your actual character background and stuff like that can be as long as you want. And feel free to share all that to the amino. Let's see. Do, do, do. Right now I'm copying down what Matt just wrote for Shadow Darkgale, which is his original character. So let's see. Shadow Darkgale has the ability to manipulate visible shadows and darkness into various forms, including weapons and piercing shadow spikes. He can also instantaneously merge and travel within darkness and summon one-hit clones out of the darkness. And then Kevin said, "Why not, Matt? Amino is awesome." Matt, I guess, is a fan of Discord. I'm personally not a fan of Discord. Let's see. Let's see. Rex has the strength of a T-Rex, the ability to bond, grant, the powers of mythical creatures, to others to transform them into his slaves, and immortality. While Rex cannot die, he still can be maimed, injured, imprisoned, etc. Let's see. Matt said Amino is garbage, and he said Jet's a hater. He said Jet given an OC immortality is silly and unfair. What? There's still plenty of things you can do even with OC having immortality. Let's see. Then Kevin said, I disagree. Amino isn't trash. If you like Discord spyware, go ahead, Matt. Then Beth said, Amino is bae. I'm glad that you vibe with Amino. Let's see. So I'm about to post a blog post on Amino that's going to be a who would win OC battle. Rex versus Shadow Darkgale. So Rex has the strength of a T-Rex, the ability to grant the powers of mythical creatures to others to transform them into his slaves, and immortality. Gosh, that's a mouthful. Strength of a T-Rex, the ability to grant the powers of mythical creatures to others to transform them into his slaves, and immortality. While Rex cannot die, he still can be maimed, injured, imprisoned, etc. And then Shadow Darkgale has the ability to manipulate visible shadows and darkness into various forms, including weapons and piercing shadow spikes. He can also instantaneously merge and travel within darkness and summon one-hit clones out of the darkness. So yeah, based on that, who do you guys think would win in a fight? And I'm going to post that blog post right now. That way people can hit that up on the Amino and comment on it. Let's see. Matt said the only way to stop immortal characters is to throw them into the dead zone. Hey, that's what Dragon Ball does. Or at least what they've done twice with Garlic Jr., one of my favorite Dragon Ball villains. Though that's not what they did with Zamasu. Zamasu, they just erased the entire timeline he was from. Doesn't matter if your whole timeline doesn't exist, like whether or not you're immortal. Then Matt said, wow, I wonder who would win, the immortal character or the not immortal character. Rex can still be maimed, injured, imprisoned, etc. You know, just because he can't die doesn't mean he can't be defeated. Beth said, why isn't my own boyfriend following me on Amino? I made the page today, scrub. Well, you didn't tell me that you got on Amino. I'm glad to hear that you got on Amino. I'll check that out now. Let's see. Rex versus Shadow Darkgale. Matt said the point is, Jet, that the only way to really beat an immortal character is to do something even more silly just to overcome. It's not too hard to imprison somebody, Matt. I mean, like, even though you can't kill him, locking him up in, like, a cell isn't, like, too much to ask. Oh, also, Beth, do you have any post on the amino? That's probably why I didn't know that you were on here. Um, do 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 do. It's always good to like set up a blog or something. That way people can get an idea of like, um, I guess just the fact that you're there and like the kind of stuff that you're into. Let's see. Matt said the point is, Jet, that the only. Oh, I already read that. Beth said you're still a scrub, lol. Then Matt said this is a no contest and you know it. Okay, Matt. Matt feels like I need to tone down my guy. I got you. So, I guess Matt feels like Rex automatically wins. Though Matt acts like Rex. Okay, hold up. I want to play devil's advocate, Matt, because I disagree. Because you have like you can't win. Your guy definitely can win, and I can explain how. Beth said thanks, and then, well, Beth said lol not yet, and then she said thanks. Then Kevin said, I would say Discord is trash, but Amino because I used to be put of a Discord furry server till the server was wrongly shut down, and the server owner accounts banned twice on 2 accounts. I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't fully understand the phrasing, but it sounds like you lost a community that you really vibed with, and I'm sorry to hear that. Then Beth said there will probably be OC and cosplay stuff. Been too busy to add anything on there. Understandable. Matt said there is one case where I win, but one out of thousands does me no good. I don't think that's true, Matt. Okay, check this out. So Shadow Darkgale in his second sentence says he can instantaneously merge and travel within darkness and summon one-hit clones out of the darkness. So all Shadow Darkgale really has to do is blend into the darkness, right? Now, Rex doesn't have any special abilities that allow him the ability to sense someone's presence in the darkness. So if Shadow Darkgale's like hidden in the darkness, and Rex is like, where'd he go? I don't know where he's at. Then Rex can't really use any of his powers against Shadow Darkgale. You know what I mean? Like, sure, Rex has the strength of a T Rex, but what is that gonna do when Shadow Darkgale is like hidden within the shadows? Sure, Rex has the ability to grant the powers of mythical creatures to others to transform them into his slaves, but he can't. Like, how is he going to grant Shadow Darkgale mythical powers if he doesn't even know where Shadow Darkgale is in order to do that? You know. And then, sure, Rex is an immortal, but Rex, as stated in his second sentence, still can be maimed, injured, and imprisoned. You could probably summon shadow spikes to like dismember Rex's body from the shadows. So while hidden amongst the shadows, you could just slice him to bits, right, with the shadow spikes that you described. And then you could even probably like stab him through the brain, and then he could be brain dead. So even though he's immortal, he still could not be able to think straight. I think that would potentially be the same thing as like a hard KO. Mm. So then Matt said, yeah, but now what does Darkgale actually do? And then Matt said, at most I can make a cage. I don't think that's at most. You could essentially lobotomize your boy. Because Rex doesn't have regeneration, he has immortality. Rex can't die, but he doesn't like heal faster than anyone else. He doesn't have like a healing factor or anything like that. Let's see. And then Kevin said, Radical SJW ruin everything. He said the Discord server wasn't built for Nazis at all. He said, thank goodness for Steam and Telegram at least. Is Telegram the name of like an app or a website? Or do you mean like literal old school telegrams? Um, then Matt said, but the issue becomes that we stalemate. I don't think it's a stalemate, Matt. Then Matt said, but he doesn't die if he's maimed. Then Matt said, Jet, I feel we are not properly utilizing immortal in the proper context. Then Kevin said, uh, part of not part of not oopy is what Kevin said. Oh, part of not put oopsie. I understand what you meant, Kevin. No problem. Then Matt said, Jet, what do you think immortality does? Immortality doesn't necessarily give you a healing factor. You can have a character who just doesn't die, but then doesn't necessarily like heal wounds and stuff like that. Like Rex, if you dismembered him, could potentially come back if he got like Frankenstein together by someone. You know what I mean? Um, but I don't really like. I feel like if you like chopped him to bits or you just lobotomized him with a spike, he just kind of would be no harm to you, and he couldn't. You know what I mean? Like I think you would just kind of win unless he could somehow get surgery or something. I don't even know how you fix a lobotomy, like how you reverse a lobotomy. But if you lobotomized him with a shadow spike, I think that would just kind of be game. Then you could imprison him and he would just kind of be like brain dead in a cage that you made out of shadows. I think that's a pretty solid victory right there. You know, just because someone's immortal doesn't mean they're like immune to lobotomies. Then Kevin said, Telegram is an app that you can use on phone and PC. Okay. Makes sense. That's what I thought it probably would be. I'd be very surprised if you were repping old school telegrams. I was like, what? Matt said, then that isn't immortality. Immortality isn't anything more than just not being able to die. It doesn't mean that you regenerate or that you have a healing factor. It just means that you don't die. Matt said, you're just making it so the body can live, not the mind. Well, immortality has nothing to do also with you keeping the same mind state. You know what I mean? Immortal people in stories very commonly like go insane and stuff like that. Like it has nothing to do with preserving your state of mind. If you like hit your head and you're an immortal and it like causes you to like change in personality or behavior, just because you're immortal doesn't mean it like adapts. Yeah. Now, if you're afraid of hacks, Matt, like if you're afraid of regeneration, then woo, I got the guy for you. Your boy Kells has created a character called Velburo, and Velburo, um, he has the ability to manipulate his clothing, regeneration, electricity manipulation, and then I think that's it. I think those are the three powers. I might be wrong, but just to repeat them, is to the power to manipulate his own clothing, regeneration, and the ability to manipulate electricity. Do you think you'd be able to take on Velburo in a fight? Because he actually has more of the healing factor stuff. Uh, let's see. Then Matt said, let's look at it this way then. This death match where only one can remain living. Who wins? Well, that's if it's to the death. You know, we didn't really define what the win condition was. Then Matt said, Kells is easy. Then Matt said, how did Velburo even come out of his universe? Um, I mean, Kells hasn't really given an explanation for how his character is usable in the OC battles. But yesterday I asked him, like, what would be the simplification for Velburo? Or, well, it's Viburo. I'm sorry. Um, then Matt said, that's not what I mean. Well, what did you mean, Matt? You got me thrown. Also, you said Kells is easy. So how would you beat Viburo then, Matt? He has regeneration, electrokinesis, and clothes manipulation, which I still don't understand. Don't really know what that does. Uh, so I would say for now, regeneration and electrokinesis, I wouldn't say that his clothing manipulation is useless, but I don't really know what he uses it for. Let's see, Matt said Viburo was meant to come from Kells' comic world. I'm aware of that. Yeah, but Kells also mentioned, in short, what Viburo could do for the sake of like the who would win battles. So in short, it's just regeneration, electrokinesis, and clothing manipulation. Let's see. Beth said, couldn't HypnoKitty play her hypno flute, convince your character that he isn't immortal, and suggested him to kill himself? Well, it's interesting to be like, suggest to him that he isn't immortal. Because it's one thing to not believe you're immortal, and it's another thing to actually stop being immortal. So if HypnoKitty hypnotized Rex to kill himself, Rex has no immunity to hypnosis. So he would probably like try, but he just wouldn't die. Like whatever he would do would hurt. He'd still be injured and he'd still have to deal with that, but he wouldn't die from it. Rex has the ability to grant mythical powers to others, but at the cost that those people lose control over themselves and they become slaves to Rex. So if HypnoKitty tries the flute thing first and has Rex attempt to kill himself in such a way that doesn't actually impede Rex's ability to continue fighting, then Rex can just bestow powers to HypnoKitty and turn her into his slave. And if he doesn't do that, he still has super strength. So he has strength proportionate to like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And outside of that, nope, that's pretty much it. Those are all the things that he can do. So he could try to use his super strength to beat down HypnoKitty, and HypnoKitty could try to hypnotize Rex into not fighting her, and that would probably work. It really comes down to what HypnoKitty tries to do and how Rex decides to counter. Um, the best thing to get Rex, I think, is a lobotomy. I still think that's like the best thing that you could try and use against him. Matt said also, how fast is the regeneration? Kells isn't here to specify the speed of the regeneration for Vibiro, so I have no idea. Not Rex. Kells had 2 sentences to describe his character, and he only used 1 sentence. So maybe in his second sentence, he could add additional specifications to how his character works. But in the meantime, we don't know how fast his regeneration is. Kevin said, shouldn't it not matter if someone's head, heart, and or body parts for someone not to die and become immortal? So none of the body parts really matter. Like, I understand what you're saying, Kevin. You can still be immortal and like lose a limb or like have like a heart ripped out or whatever. That doesn't mean that it doesn't still like hurt or that your body's functioning doesn't start to like fail. You just don't die, but you can still like feel pain and feel like yourself like lose blood and stuff like that. You know, like if your heart got ripped out, you wouldn't be able to do a lot. You probably couldn't think or anything because if there's no blood rushing to your brain, then like what are you supposed to do? You just wouldn't die. But not dying doesn't really mean much if you can't do anything. Like Rex can still be crippled. Like if you can like break Rex's like limbs, he still would have to like heal from that. There's a lot you can do to like make him not as useful. Let's see. Beth said, and Vibiro could take clothing off to make fighting easier. So Vibiro, he can manipulate his own clothing. That was something that Kells made very specific. He wasn't like Vibiro can manipulate any clothes. He can manipulate his own clothes. And I don't really know what that's for or what he can do with that. It's so vague. I can't tell if that means he can literally do anything involving his clothes or if that means that he can just telekinetically move his clothes with his mind. So I'm not sure. Let's see. Matt said, so how does Vibiro have all these varied powers if it is based upon the card system? That is a good-ass question, Matt. Let's look at his page a little bit. His card is hearts, and his power is that he can regenerate any part of his body, but then he also has spirit martial arts techniques, and I guess The other things have to do with spirit martial arts techniques. So I guess his card power is his regeneration, and then his manipulation of his own clothing and electrokinesis, I guess, are spirit martial arts. Let's see. Then Matt said, the point is that Vibiro can't touch me. So you're right that Vibiro doesn't have any. Well, Matt, I think Vibiro might be able to beat you. So, Matt, when you do the merge into the shadows thing, do there have to be shadows present? Like, do you need shadows in order to do that? Because if Vibiro can create like a strong enough like spark of lightning, like a ball of lightning, to illuminate an area, he could be like the entire area is lit. He would still cast a shadow, but he could be like, other than me, like this whole area is as lit as it can be, in order to limit the shadows that you could possibly emerge from, and then maybe use that in order to keep you from. I mean, you'll always have your own shadow, so that's not as good as it could be. Also, Rex could potentially get your guy if he uses his uh, grant you mythical powers to enslave you thing. If he does that, I think Rex could still get Shadow Dark Gale. But outside of that, I feel like Rex is pretty useless against your guy. I'm still trying to figure out what Vibiro could do against your guy, since you can instantly merge into the shadows. But if there are no shadows, then I feel like that doesn't matter. Let's see. So then Matt said, Jet, you're using a very weak sauce immortality. He said, I feel like you should just describe it as something that isn't immortality. But he can't die. That's like the definition of what immortality is. He just doesn't get a healing factor or like regeneration or anything. That's more Vibiro. My guy just actually can't die. But that's it for his like immortality. Then Matt said, I need to be able to go into darkness. He said, also my clones cast shadows. That's true that your clones cast shadows. I'm gonna look back at your two sentences. Do your clones have to emerge from darkness first? Or what? Let's see. Shadow Dark Elf has the ability to manipulate visible shadows and darkness into various forms, including weapons and piercing shadow spikes. He can also instantaneously merge and travel within darkness and summon one-hit clones out of darkness. So, do darkness and shadows go together? I guess would be my question. Like, do shadows count as darkness, or is darkness like more of a deeper kind of? Ooh, it's so weird to explain. But do you know how like shadows can be relatively faint? There we go. There's a shadow in the background. Like, would that count as darkness? That little shadow in the background of my hand, or would darkness be like more of a pitch black kind of darkness? Though putting my hand in front of the camera didn't work as well as I thought it would be. Thought it would. Let's see. Matt said, I need to be able to get into darkness. He said, also my clones cast shadows. Matt said, Viburo can die though. And he said, yes, the two terms are synonymous. Okay, cool. So you're not trying to differentiate at all between the two. Because I noticed sometimes you say shadows, sometimes you say darkness. So you're like, yeah, I mean, there's nothing he can really do to eliminate shadows. There just really isn't anything that Vibiro can do to stop that. And since Vibiro isn't immortal, I imagine that it is possible to kill him. Because otherwise, he could just say that he's has immortality and can regenerate. But just regeneration doesn't guarantee immortality. I feel like Vibiro could potentially goot you with like a surprise attack if you weren't aware of his presence. But you could argue the same thing for you. You could also get him with a surprise attack. Though I feel like you would have to be a lot more aggressive with your surprise attack than him. I feel like he could one shot you if you weren't ready, but I feel like you would have to go really hard to get him because he regenerates. Like it wouldn't be a one shot. You'd be like spike, 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 spike. Like you'd have to like really just like tear him up, and then we don't really know how well his regeneration works. You might have to like really just continually beat at him, but he also would probably try and fight back. He probably wouldn't just take that sitting down. So I think it puts you in an interesting situation. Let's see. Matt said I wouldn't be able to go into my own shadow since it would disappear if I do that. Huh. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's good logic. Matt said, but I can make a clone from my shadow and then jump into its shadow. That also makes sense. Matt said flashbangs and the sort are the main weakness, though. Well, that's what I was talking about earlier with the concept that he could create like a ball of lightning and then it illuminates the area. However, even when an area is fully illuminated, this is what I was thinking about earlier. Even when an area is fully illuminated, things still cast shadows. Even though you can be blinded by the light, that doesn't mean that like shadows vanish because a flashbang has been put down. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't lose shadows due to him doing the lightning flashbang. You would have plenty of shadows. He would actually be creating an additional light source for shadows to be cast from. So, you know, like, I don't think it really stops you. I don't think it stops you at all if he does that. But that was what I was originally thinking he could do to try and stop you. Let's see. Then Matt said, plus the Shadow Dark Gale is a generally cautious distance fighter type of individual. Then Matt said, define his electrokinesis. He kept it pretty vague. He just was like, the ability to manipulate electricity. But he could technically use that to do things like manipulate how electricity moves through your brain. So he could potentially use that to try and do a mind control kind of thing. Um, let's see. What else could he do in a creative way to try and manipulate electricity to get you? So you say Shadow Dark Gale is a big distance fighter, which makes sense. If you can turn someone's shadow into an enemy that can like kill them, then that's it. Definitely makes sense to not be there. Um, I feel like if we're gonna do what would we do at a distance, then I feel like the fight would be really different. Because I don't think Rex would go himself to fight if we're gonna do like how you would fight at a distance. Because Rex can just grant someone else the abilities of a mythical creature. That person becomes a slave, and then he goes, "Go fight for me," and then his slave could go and fight you instead, and then he can use that to try and gauge what your abilities are by like watching from a distance what happens, and then from that he can be like, okay, so based on those powers, I should probably pick a different mythical creature like ability to grant to my next slave and then send like the best slave to work against your abilities and then try and do that. Let's see. Matt said a flashbang could momentarily eliminate all darkness, a la shining a flashlight on a shadow. Does that work? You said that with like a good level of confidence, but I've never heard of that. Shine a flashlight on a shadow. Does the shadow actually go away? Images. Um what? I'm thinking about it. I googled it. I'm like trying to find something. Because I understand when people shine flashlights in a dark room, but that's very different than shining it on a shadow and then the shadow disappearing. Let's see. And then Matt said a clone doesn't really have any form of consciousness or organs. I understand that he wouldn't be able to turn one of your clones into one of his slaves. Well, actually, Rex doesn't do mind control that way. I think you're talking about Viburo. You're like Viburo wouldn't be able to manipulate the electrical currents moving through a clone's mind because a clone doesn't have a mind or electrical currents to manipulate in their mind. Excuse me. So I understand what you're talking about there. For a minute, I thought you were talking about Rex, and I was like, well, Rex isn't doing it that way, but I see what you mean. Let's see. Then Matt said, plus Darkgale's cautious route would be go into darkness, move high up, and summon a sniper rifle for a quick kill. So you would try and like snipe your enemy with a shadow sniper rifle. Um, hmm. If you sniped Rex, that would definitely down him for like a good amount of time. But like I said, if we're going with distant tactics of characters, then I feel like Rex would just send slaves to try and get you rather than send himself. So I guess I'd be curious to see what you'd be doing. Let's see. Matt said hiding his full strength is the idea. And he said if you shine a flashlight on a shadow, part of the shadow is gone. Is there evidence of this? I'm legitimately like, man, is there like a picture of that? I want to like see that. Um, because I don't think I've ever seen that before or heard of that before. I always see flashlights that are shined on objects, and then you see the shadow behind the object. But I never see flashlights shined on shadows, and you see like the shadow disappear. Let's see. And then Matt said, but would Rex sense where I was going or where I popped out? And then Matt said, Jet, grab a flashlight and shine it on your shadow. You act like people just have flashlights around. That's not like a casual thing. Because I have plenty of shadows here. I just don't have plenty of flashlight. There we go. There's the arm shadow. Now, if only we had a flashlight to point at that, then we'd figure it out. But I've never seen that. I've actually never seen that. Is it possible for there to be no shadows with light present? I mean, I'm sure there's nothing there, then yeah. Mm. Some people ask questions that I wouldn't have expected. Like one guy asked, "Can fire have a shadow?" And it's like, yeah, I've just seen that before. That yeah, like that makes sense that fire can have a shadow. Shadow is a dark, real image area where light from a light source is blocked by an opaque object. It occupies all of the three-dimensional volume behind an object with light in front of it. The cross section of a shadow is a two-dimensional silhouette or a reverse projection of the object blocking the light. Mm. Matt said, I feel like for Rex, I would be able to get an easy shot because he wouldn't be able to know where I was going. But how would you know where Rex is? Um, Set up like a scenario. Like give me like a setting for the fight. Are both fighters aware that they're like in a battle? Um, and then where do both opponents start? Do they know where the other opponent is at the start of the fight or not? Stuff like that. I feel like would be really helpful. Okay. Matt said New York City, 30 feet away from each other, they know they are in a fight. Yo, Matt. Then, whoa. I think you put yourself in a really weird situation. So 30 feet away from each other, and they know they're in a fight. One, Rex could potentially try to use his power to just control you. To like grant you an additional power and then make you his slave. And even if he didn't do that, you put him in like one of the most populated cities. You know what I mean? There are just so many other people where even if he didn't try to enslave you, he could just enslave everybody else around because New York is just bumping with people all the time. So it would be like you versus an army of slaves with like mythical powers. Matt said instantaneous merge keeps me from him getting me. I understood what you meant. It allows you to like dodge him trying to control you. But now he just controls everybody else in the city and they get like the abilities of mythical creatures. Excuse me. Though I am trying to figure out what would be the best mythical creature to deal with you. And then Matt said, as for his unlimited supply, I can still just sit in the darkness. It's true that you can just like chill, but I'm curious to see if you could chill forever. All I need is a mythical creature who can also blend into the darkness. Mythical creature that can enter shadows. Hmm. Do 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 do. And then Matt said, "Now can Rex choose his mythical creatures?" For this particular description, since we're doing like the two sentence thing, there's nothing that says that he can't. Um, you know what I mean? For the actual story that I'm writing, he has to grab what are called mythical shadows, which are these energy beings that exist. Let's see. And then Matt said, and if he can, how knowledgeable is he about mythical creatures? Now, that is also vague with the two sentences given. Because all we have for Rex is Rex has the strength of a T Rex, the ability to grant the powers of mythical creatures to others to transform them into his slaves, and immortality. While Rex cannot die, he can still be maimed, injured, imprisoned, etc. So, and then Matt said background is still a part of how powers are utilized. The way that he's going to do it in the lore book that I'm writing is he would need mythical shadows to put in a person. But he also lives in a world where mythical shadows are like a thing. So it's not too crazy for him to be like, there's a mythical shadow of like a phoenix and like put it in a person. You know, if he like wanted to. Because they're around. They're like a race of being that exist. For the context of this, though, I circumvented the whole mythical shadow thing because it's only two sentences that we get for the characters, which I like because I think it helps keep it simple. You don't have a lot of extra stuff to look at. But when it comes to Rex's background, he believes that he should be the ruler of the world. So he's definitely not afraid to use his power on others in order to turn them into slaves. Um, he is starting to get more into the I need to travel mentality. Like I need to like go places and try and conquer more of the world. Um, I've yet to write him in a fight. So I'm still trying to think about that. I'm also gonna make a character that's a counter for Rex, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. Let's see. Matt said in any OC fight, so long as some form of equivalent exists, it would exist in the fight. And then Matt said, I feel like him needing mythical shards should be part of the fight. You mean mythical shadows? Um, so does he just not have any because he's in New York? And then Matt said, and that should be a readily obtainable resource in the fight. So you feel like we should just pretend like the mythical shadows are a thing in New York so that he can get his hands on them? And if so, is it just random then? Like, is it a thing where it's like he has to go with whatever he can find in his immediate area to bond? Because if so, then it's less of a strategy thing then. He can't be like, okay, so then the best thing would be to use this, or to do this, or to do that. Also, yo, Momo, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy? Do you have any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? Also, don't forget to smash that like button. Truly appreciate it. Let's see. Matt said, if only one particular shadow could get me, then it's an outlier. Hmm. So, Matt, do you feel like if I could name multiple different mythical creatures that could get you, that it increases the ability for Rex to get that opportunity, like to get the one that he needs, if there are a significant number? Excuse me. And what number do you think would be a significant number? Matt said, if multiple types of shadows can get me, then it doesn't fully matter which one it is. Hey, there we go. So yeah, I just need to. Well, what's your number, I guess? And then Matt said a majority of the scenarios should be Rex being capable of beating me. Well, I guess my question is, what do you count as the majority? You know what I mean? Like how many should I have to find where it's like, well, if he got this, he could do this, and if he got this, he could do this, and such and such and such and such. Um, then you know. Also, elementals might be able to get you, like darkness-based elementals. I'm currently looking at a list to try and see if I can figure it out. A shadow person is the perception of a patch of shadow as a living humanoid figure, particularly as interpreted by believers in the paranormal or supernatural as the presence of a spirit or other entity. A shadow person straight up is just like the perception of a shadow as a living humanoid figure. It straight up just is a shadow person. So I feel like that could potentially get you. I'm trying to figure out another one that's not just, it's literally a shadow. And then Matt said a shadow person seems more like my clones than anything. Well, I don't think there's anything innately about a shadow person that makes it like a one hit thing, because your clones are like a one hit thing. And then Matt said, thus, I don't think it could merge and fight me in the darkness. But it is the darkness. Let's see. A number of religions, legends, and belief systems describe shadowy spiritual beings or supernatural entities such as shades of the underworld, and various shadowy creatures have long been a staple of folklore and ghost stories. Dun, 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 dun. Wow, this is a really short article. I was gonna like skip to see if there was more that talked about like powers, and then it was like, hey, you want to know about some pop culture related things and some scientific explanations? And then Matt said it comes from darkness but can't go into darkness. Well, then what if I could find a mythical creature that can teleport? Could you teleport into the darkness theoretically? I think that actually is an interesting question. Like, is darkness kind of like a plane of existence? So if you could teleport, you could go there, kind of thing. Do 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 do. Also, we have hit 59 minutes in, so we got about 20 seconds left. So I'm gonna start doing the wrap up. I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding ding ding, ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we do these live streams. Thank you all once again for tuning in. Truly appreciate it. This is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black the one and only, logging out. Matt said Jet is 8:57. Stop it. Let me look. You were right. We do have 3 more minutes. I did start the stream early. That's true. Okay, so in an hour and 3 minutes, that's when we'll hit it. But yeah, we got time. Oh, but Matt, uh, did you ever answer the question about the teleport into like a darkness dimension kind of thing? If so, then I might be able to Gucci if I can just find some mythical creatures that can teleport. They can enter your darkness realm or shadow dimension, whatever you want to call it. Then Matt said, although I think a person could get into darkness through non merging means, I don't think they can remain in there. Huh. So, what do you think would cause someone to be evacuated forcefully from the darkness? Like, what do you think would like mess them up? I guess would be my question. Excuse me. Do 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 do. Then Matt said they would just pop out, as I would if the darkness I was in vanished. So do you think when people teleport into the darkness that the darkness goes away? Like why what causes them to pop out? I guess is my question. Cuz you're like if you did enter through like a non-normal way that you would like be evacuated. But I guess my question is like why? Then Matt said if they don't have the ability to remain in darkness, then they can't. Well, is darkness like a place? I guess is what I'm asking. And then if you have the ability to teleport to different places, then why wouldn't your teleport ability allow you to stay there if you're not choosing to teleport out? And then Matt said, I do feel as though darkness in this case is a plane. Well, okay. Then yeah, I guess I'm just curious if I can teleport into that plane, why couldn't I just stay there? If that's like a part of my ability. I understand if you're like, there's no oxygen, like you couldn't breathe if you went there, which wouldn't cause them to necessarily immediately evacuate, but they just maybe would have to hold their breath or something. Um, I'd understand if you're like, they can't see if they're there. That also makes sense. If it's a darkness plane, I wouldn't be surprised if you can't see anything. And then Matt said a plane can have regulations about what can and can't be in there. Is it like a domain? Because there's a big difference between like an alternate, like pocket dimension kind of place and one that's like ruled over with like certain rules and regulations and stuff like that. Oh, but now we have actually hit the real time. I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding ding ding, ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we do these live streams. This is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black the one and only, logging out. Catch you guys later, and peace.